Hello everyone and welcome to the third episode in my Materialize CSS mini-series. Now in this video we are going to be going over the various utility classes that Materialize has to offer. They consist mainly of the aligning classes, such as you can easily vertically align things, you can use quick text aligns and quick floats, which I do not recommend since floating was a technique in CSS that is not much used today because Flexbox is much better generally for a lot of the things floats were used for. But I will just go over it in case you do want to know it. And then you can also hide things in Materialize, and you can hide them based on the screen size, which is extremely useful. I use this utility all the time in websites I design with Materialize. And then you can truncate text, which is another thing which we can do in CSS. You can make something quickly hoverable, which allows you basically to hover over it and it creates a shadow very quickly. And then you can reset some of the styles that Materialize applies because, for example, if you create a UL in Materialize, it won't have bullet points, but if you apply the browser default class, it will re-add those as if Materialize wasn't there. So I'll go ahead and go through each of these. So to get started, let's open up our index.html and hit the Go Live button. And then in addition, I will just come here and search in Materialize CSS right here. And we can go to CSS helpers. Oops, not images, not media, helpers. So everything I talked about or listed is here on this page. Again, if you need any help, just go to this documentation page and we can open up our site. So as a quick recap, we basically went over the grid in the previous episode. As I said, the grid in Materialize is made up of 12 columns by default. You can't really change it. Each of the columns will always have an equal width. And you can use these, like S1 basically means on small screens and up, make it one column. And M4 means on medium screens and up, make it 4 columns. L5, and so on, large screens, 5 columns. And then this makes it green, for example. You can use offsets, which basically push it over by one, leaves one white space grid piece. So, for example, this 11 that's red right here has an offset of S1, and the reason why it's not showing is because it's not small, and because I have Java here. Let me just minimize that there. So yeah, as you can see on small screens, that 11, at least in theory, let me figure out what's going on with that, should have an offset of one grid piece. And you can see this is an offset of 1, this is an offset of 1 when we have these white spaces here. And then you can, of course, push and pull, and that's actually why we're pushing and pulling these grid pieces as well. So you can apply all of those styles, and then I'm going to go ahead and remove these for now, just so we don't get confused with what we're covering in this video. Like I said again, we are going to be covering the various utility classes. So to start off, let's go ahead and start off with vertical alignment, as stated here in the documentation. We can create a div, for example, and give it a class of v-align wrapper. Which will basically, under the hood, what it does is it creates a flexbox. It makes this div a flexbox, and then it uses align items center. And if you are not familiar, using flexbox allows you to basically position your items, and then using align items center will vertically position them. So that's how it's doing it under the hood. So for example, if we give it an h1 hello world, and in addition to giving it a v-align wrapper, we have to give it a height. So let's just give it a height of 200 pixels, and let's give it a red background just so we can see that background there. And if I save this here, you'll notice the div has a background and it's somewhat centered. The reason why it's not fully centered is because of the margin that is on this h1 by default. What we can do is we can just say style, and then we can give it no margin. Margin is 0, and by doing that, it should, for the most part, center it. Yeah, it is centered now. It may not look fully centered, but that's partially because of the the font itself. But as you can see, this little blue box that's bounding the text is centered in the div, which is pretty cool. So that's the v-align wrapper helper class. I do not, again, like if you are going to be mixing vanilla CSS with Materialize, like I am here, I'm using margin 0, style height 200. I would just recommend using a regular flexbox. Like instead of saying v-align wrapper red, I could just remove v-align wrapper. And just so it's not as confusing to regular developers, we could just say flex or display flex to make it a flex box, and then of course align items center. And by saving that, it creates the same effect here on our website. So that's what it's doing under the hood anyways. And then if we come here, we can use the text align utility classes. You can do left, right, and center align. And of course, let's just go ahead and remove these here. For example, if we wanted to give this H1 a center align, all we have to do is, I can remove this first, and give the H1 itself a class of center-align. And if I save that, notice now the text is center aligned, and same with right align, of course, and it is naturally left aligned by default, but we can still specify left align, which will put it here to the left. And remember, these under the hood, these utility classes are just simply applying the style of, if we come here, it's basically applying this style of text align, and then center, for example, for center align, and then right for right align, similarly to that. So that's all it's doing under the hood. And then, like I said, you can quickly float things. I do not recommend you use these because floats get in the way of flex often. So you never want to really, or you don't generally want to mix floats and flex. And flex is definitely superior in its terms of the customizability, because for floating, you can only float it in 4 directions rather than being able to specify the vertical and horizontal kind of positioning of your items. So if I just put left in here, notice it'll float left. If I put right in here, it will float right. And those are just the simple things. And notice when I come here, when you put a right float, what a float does is, as you can see, this H1 is not actually taking up the whole width. It's floating to the right. But if I remove this float, notice this H1, this blue bounding box, is actually taking up the entire width of the div. So of course, if I put left as well and save this, notice again, if you see that blue bounding box that's around the text is only taking up the space it needs, rather than if I remove it, it's taking up the entirety of the width. So that's basically what the floats are doing. And this may come in handy, but I do not recommend it personally, because naturally you can always use text align or flexbox if needed. And then for hiding and showing content, this is a there's quite a few things you can do here. So there is the hide class, which will always hide it, hidden for all devices. There is the hide on small only, medium only, and large only. So you can basically hide something only on a certain screen size. And you can also hide on medium and down, medium and up, small, and then you can do show classes, which basically make it show only on small, on medium, on large, medium and up, and medium and down. So just to give you an example, let's go ahead and just go ahead and put some H1s, and I'll put 3 of them, and I'll say high, and then right here we will add high small, high medium, and high large, just if we wanted to show some slightly different content based on the screen size. And on all of these, we're going to give them a class of, for example, we can say dot hide on medium and up. So basically this will only show on small screens, because anything medium or up, aka medium or large, will be hidden in effect. And then just showing here, we can say hide on or dot show on medium here, so it only shows on medium. And then we could say hide on medium or and down. And notice, let me just make sure I'm applying these correctly. Med. Let me make sure I properly applied these styles. So let me give it a, or why did I use a dot? That's why. No dots. So as you can see, I can add hide and then show on medium. And there we go. So basically, as you can see here, or is it show on medium only? Show for tablet only. Yeah, okay. High, medium, high, large. For whatever reason, medium is staying. So what I'll say is hide on small and down, and then hide on large, large only. And theoretically, I mean, now this is making it so that it's small. When it's small, it's only showing the small. When it's medium, it's only showing the medium. And when it's large, it's only showing the large, which is pretty cool. So those are the various hiding classes that you can add to give your website some additional responsivity or responsiveness. And then finally, we have truncate and hover. So naturally, this is similar to text truncate from Tailwind. If I add the truncate thing and I make a word very, very long like that, what will happen is when I go large like that, notice there will be these three dots. Normally, it would go past the screen if I remove truncate. Like that, and it'll wrap around, or it'll make you scroll on the screen. But if you don't want that to happen, you can just add the truncate command, and that will automatically add the ellipsis at the end and will not make it so that you can scroll. And then I think the last two topics are hoverable are mainly used for cards, but you can use them on anything. So let's just quickly create a div here. Div dot, let's just make it red again, and let's make it hoverable. And then let's give it a width of maybe 500 pixels and a height of 500 pixels. And if we come here, again, notice when I hover on it, there's this little drop shadow that gets applied, as you can see just right there. It's a quick drop shadow effect, and it's pretty nice to use just as a little utility class. And then finally, a quick example of a UL is if I use a UL here and then I put LIs and I put hi, notice that the hi here doesn't actually have a bullet point. And the reason for that is because Materialize overrides the styling on that, so we can say browser dash default, and now we get the point back. And it's the same for inputs and select elements. So that's just a cool thing to know. So yeah, that was pretty much all I had to plan to talk about in this video. I just wanted to go over the various helper classes. That way we can move on to the cooler topics, in my opinion. If you want to see more videos like this and more videos as they come out for Materialize, I highly recommend you check out the playlist, which is linked in the description. I'm currently uploading daily. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.